Thank you very much. Logistically, just for later, if you'd like to get a copy of the book, you'll have to go to this URL, AI4marketersbook.com. There's a discount code. Buy it, and then just bring your receipt over. That way we're not all hanging out, staring at each other, swiping credit cards. All right, let's talk about artificial intelligence. We as marketers want three things. We want better, faster, cheaper. Everybody wants better, faster, and cheaper. How are we doing as marketers with better, faster, and cheaper? On the topic of better, marketing is in a tough place right now. This year, in 2019, we as a civilization will create 40 zettabytes of data. Now, that's an unimaginably large number. To give you a sense of how large a zettabyte is, how many people watch Netflix? Okay, pretty much the entire world. If you were to start watching Netflix without stopping to eat, to drink, to sleep, any of those things, and you started 55 million years ago, you would just get to 1 zettabyte of data usage now. And we're going to create 40 of these this year. Marketers are not great at keeping up with this much data. And, especially for those of you who work in direct mail, you know this person very well. Test@test.com, right? And bad addresses, bad information. As marketers, we're not doing a great job with data quality. So marketing, not really getting better. Part of the reason why is because of the use of data, or the lack thereof. In the most recent CMO survey, which, by the way, if you have not downloaded, is completely free, not even a form to fill out, at cmosurvey.org, it's released twice a year, and it's what's on the minds of chief marketing officers. In the most recent CMO survey, marketing analytics used for making decisions is at an all-time high of 43%. Which kind of makes you wonder, what are you doing the other 56% of the time? Just guessing? And yet, when you look at what chief marketing officers care about, overwhelmingly they say, we want to prove the value of marketing. 2/3 of chief marketing officers need to be able to prove the value. So we're not doing better as marketers. Are we at least getting faster? Well, the world's getting faster. In 2019, compared to 2018, the variety and the speed at which data is happening is faster than ever. In 2018, there were 266,000 hours of Netflix watching within 60 seconds on the internet. In 2019, that's 694,000 hours of Netflix watch. That is a lot of Netflix and chill. Take one person left. 174,000 scrolls on Instagram last year, 340,000 scrolls this year. Snapchat went down a little bit. 187,000 million emails sent last year, 188 million emails sent this year. This is within 60 seconds. 60 seconds on the internet. Okay. 1.1 million Tinder swipes last year, 1.4 million this year. 60 seconds on the internet. If you are looking just at something as simple as news, this year we are on track for about 122 million news stories. It's 172 news stories per minute. If your company was on the front page of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, you're gone in 8 seconds, right? Because something else has come to take its place. So marketing is not keeping up with the world. The world is getting much faster. We are not. Finally, are we doing anything to get cheaper? When you ask CMOs, how are you quantifying the impact of your marketing? Only about 36% can say they can prove the impact of marketing. 50% just kind of guess, and 13% said, heck with it, we're not even going to try. So 2/3 of marketers can't prove quantitatively the impact of their marketing. And we see this in the amount of money that we're spending. We're spending more on brand, we're spending more on CRM, we're spending more on product, we're spending more on service. Marketing is not getting cheaper. In fact, marketing is getting more expensive. The combination of not being better, not being faster, and not being cheaper leads to an unpleasant outcome. Right? And it leads to us getting our butts kicked. The solution, or a solution to this, unsurprisingly, which is why you're here, is artificial intelligence, which promises three things: better, faster, and cheaper. Right? Artificial intelligence is absolutely faster because it's computers. It's, at the end of the day, it's all math, so it's computers that can do things much faster than we can. Anyone who's ever made a mistake copying and pasting something knows that machines are much better at data accuracy than we are. And there are so many tasks that we do as marketers, cleaning lists, for example, that machines are just so much better at doing than we are. So it's automation, making things less expensive by taking off boring tasks. So what is this stuff? You've heard a lot about it, seen it in the news. People are afraid of Terminators and things like that. Artificial intelligence is about getting machines to think like humans. If you look at how a human develops, we begin with basic sensory things, right? Our senses, basic algorithms. Touch the stove, it's hot, how don't do that again. We evolve to things like language, being able to communicate, and then higher cognitive function, being able to think and reason. By the way, as a parent of a teenager, I think everyone can appreciate the fact that Harvard says cognitive function declines when they're 13. Machines are no different. We begin with things like algorithms, move on to machine learning, deep learning, and then get to what's called general purpose, or artificial general intelligence, which is when a machine becomes sentient and can think for itself. That's a long ways off. Depending on who you ask, between 5 and 50 years away. But it's not soon. It's not something we need to worry about. All artificial intelligence begins with statistics and probability. At the end of the day, it's math. Is this a picture of a hot dog or is it not? Is this, do we understand what word is being said or not? From stats, machines have algorithms. An algorithm is something you use every single day in marketing. If you've done an A/B test, you use an algorithm. You use algorithms in your daily life. It's just a set of repeatable processes with a guaranteed outcome. I would bet you a small pastry, retail value of $5 or less, that, you have to be very specific these days, that you probably put on the same general article of clothing every morning, right? Some people put the bottom on first, some people put the top on first, some people, a few weirdos put their socks on first. But whatever the case is, you probably are consistent. That's an algorithm. Now, where things change is when we get into what is called machine learning, the first stage of artificial intelligence. Traditionally, you used to write software, write the code, write the algorithm, and then the machine would spit out a result. Everything from your word processor, to your mailing label printer, to your video games does exactly that. Machine learning reverses that. We now feed data to machines, and they write their own software. That's how machine learning works. And there's two broad categories. Let's say we had a table full of kids' blocks, right? In the first type of machine learning, it's called supervised learning. We want to understand, we want to teach the machine to recognize something. So we show the machine the color red over and over and over again until it recognizes the color red. And then everything after that, it can find the color red. Supervised learning is most famously known for, in this case from IBM. Back in 2013, IBM Oncology was working with the University of Tokyo. There was a woman who had leukemia, and she was not getting better. She was not responding to treatment. So they fed her genome to Watson. And they fed 233,000 oncology journals to Watson and said, figure it out. What's wrong? Watson sequenced the genome, read the journals, and spit back, you're treating the wrong kind of leukemia. Supervised learning, you should be treating this kind instead. They changed the treatment, she made a full recovery. AI saved a person's life. Now what's cool about that is that the machine did that, but it did it in 11 minutes. Okay? That's how fast this stuff works, supervised learning. You will see this most often in the direct marketing world in simple things like using AI to clean lists, right? You know what a proper mailing address looks like. You teach a machine that, and it will clean faster and better than you possibly could. The second category is called unsupervised learning. Instead of just identifying the blocks by the color red, what if you want to identify them by all colors? Or by their shapes? Or by their sizes? When you hand a pile of data to a machine and say, do some unsupervised learning on it, it will try and categorize all the different ways you could slice and dice that data. A simple example of this is I was getting ready for a client meeting, and there were 2,600 articles that we needed to digest down to tell the client, here's what was in the news about you. Wrote a piece of software, it digested it down to one chart that just broke out the individual topics. Here's what all these articles are generally about. And can present that to a client. Now, unsupervised learning can be used in direct marketing just to classify who are the people who are on your list, for example. What are all the different zip codes? What are all the different areas? What are the genders of the people who are on your list? Being able to classify and categorize your audiences, and then be able to expand that and do things like RFM analysis to figure out who are your most valuable members. The last category is called deep learning, which is when you combine many layers of machine learning together into deep learning. Think like a big stack of pancakes where each layer is an algorithm, each layer is a type of machine learning, and the data, not a perfect analogy, but it's like the syrup that goes from layer to layer. Deep learning lets us create machines that are faster, better, and cheaper than any human. Machines can read lip snap better than humans can. Much higher accuracy, as an example of deep learning. So this is what AI is. And the reason we need to know this is not because we expect you to become an artificial intelligence engineer or a data scientist. We expect you to know this because you need a detector of our Spanish friends would call it excremento de toro. When you hear vendors talking about how we all have AI in their products, being able to ask better questions to those vendors to say, okay, explain what kind of machine learning is in your product. Because in the most recent, in an article in the Financial Times recently, they said 35% of vendors that say they have AI don't have a lick of it in their product. So being able to ask these questions of your vendors. Now, what does this look like when you go to the state of the art? This past February, IBM had a debate, it was actually called Project Debater, between a human debate champion on stage and a machine. And they were both given the topic 15 minutes in advance. Should we subsidize kindergarten? The machine had to go out and do its research, the human had to do its research. They both presented opening statements. They both listened to each other's arguments. And then they both presented rebuttals and summary closing arguments. Now, in theory, the human won because the human got more votes from the audience. But the fact that the machine listened, argued, and came back with intelligible responses the entire time was groundbreaking. Imagine being able to have a customer service representative, for example, that could truly listen to the customer, talk to them, and provide them good answers. That's the state of the art today. Now, there are some things AI is not good at. Generally speaking, AI is not good at empathy. Right? Machines can understand sentiment and emotion in text, but they can't act on it. Right? Empathy is being able to understand what somebody feels and then take action appropriately. Machines can't do that. Machines are very bad at complex judgments that go outside the rules. For example, if you've been in business for a while, there's that friend or that colleague or that person that you like that you're like, you know what, we'll just cut you a break on this thing, or we'll throw in a little something extra. That's human judgment that overrides the rules. Machines, by definition, cannot override the rules they've made for themselves. Machines are very bad at general life experience. They can't cross domains. They can solve problems very narrowly, but not take into account the big picture. And for the most part, machines cannot substitute for human relationships. I say for the most part because there are some places and some companies where you would prefer a machine. For example, the Registry of Motor Vehicles. I would gladly deal with a machine any day of the week. So let's look at some practical examples of how is this stuff, which sounds like science fiction, how is it being used in reality today, solving 5 kinds of problems. Untapped data, unknown influencers, unclear actions to take, unfocused marketing, and unprepared for marketing planning. Let's take a look at untapped data first. You are sitting on a tremendous amount of data that you're not using. From who's on your mailing list to what they create on social media to in your CRM. We did an example recently for International Women's Day. There were 1.6 million social media posts published on that day about that topic. That is the equivalent of 8,960 novels. You cannot read that much in a day. But a machine can. So we're able to digest down into one chart what all the major topics were of that day, and then provide that as guidance to social media managers and planners and say, if you want to participate in this conversation, these are the things that you should talk about. And by the way, there's some things here that you should not talk about unless you happen to be female. But being able to digest down that kind of insight is tremendously valuable if you want to be able to act within the moment. Machines can help you do this. Another example, We looked at, we did a project for a recruiting company, looking at all the listings that they put up on their Indeed job boards, and all the words that they put in their job listings. And then we took 17,000 calls from their call center, had a machine transcribe them all, and looked at the words that people talked about on the phone with their recruiters. If you look, there's almost no overlap. And so this company is wondering, why are we having such a hard time recruiting? Well, it's because in your job ads, there's nothing in there that people actually want to talk to you about. Right? People care, these truck drivers care about things like region and job type and will they be home for Christmas? And none of that is in the job ad. So being able to take that untapped data, all those calls from the call center, and turn them into useful, actionable information is the value. The second type is being able to identify influencers, people who could help your business by representing them better. This is an example from Adobe Summit, which is a major mega tech conference that happened about a month ago. There were 120,000 social posts that occurred on the first day. If you wanted to talk to the people who everyone else talked about, using machine learning and a technique called network graphing, you can take all that conversation and find the most influential people. Some of them are speakers, but a whole bunch are folks, ordinary folks that you could talk to get a hold of and present to your products and services. And that comes in the handy form of a spreadsheet that you can use to say, here's who's worth talking to at this show. Now imagine being able to do that at a major conference or a major event. If you're in B2C, imagine being able to do that for something like Coachella and figure out who are the B or C list folks that you might want to talk to. You're not going to get to the A-listers, but you might get to the B or C list folks and get them to represent your brand. The third category is being able to clear up what's in your data. We have a lot of data. You have a lot of data right now, but a lot of it is very difficult to manage because there's, frankly, it's just so large. In an example recently for an insurance company, we looked at their search engine optimization, the keywords that this company ranked for. They had 80,000 keywords. Now, if you're the SEO manager trying to figure out what words and phrases should we focus on, that's a very daunting task to read through all 80,000 and figure out what to focus on. But if you were to put it into a machine and have it through a technique called clustering, you can find the things that the pages on someone's website that they rank for best and help them shore up their listings, shore up their search engine optimization. Conversely, you can then use that exact same technique to figure out what their competitors rank for, but they don't, and go after those topics and create content around those topics. And by the way, this technique is incredibly valuable for direct marketing because if you use this information about what pages are most valuable on somebody's website, guess what? That can inform the paper collateral, the real world prints, the bus wraps and things, based on what you know people care about. Right? So you can take digital data and bring it into the real world. Fourth example, understanding what drives performance. We have more data than ever, and we have a lot of it. If you were to take every metric that you have in marketing, from locations of billboards, number of pieces of direct mail sent out, search keywords, social media posts, emails sent, people in your marketing automation system, on your email list, all the way through your CRM to, hey, pay us money. You put them all in a giant spreadsheet, you as a human would find it very, very difficult to figure out which combination of those variables leads to revenue, leads to business. But with a technique called gradient boosting from machine learning, you can do that. The machines can mix and match and understand what is the most impactful things that you could be doing. This is an example, really surprising. For an automotive, we wanted to understand what things got them feet in showrooms. Oddly enough, it was actually the size of their social media postings. We did not expect that. We expected it to be something else. But for them, it was about getting to audiences, right? If you want to prove the value of direct mail, for example, there's no better way than to add all of your direct mail data into all of your other marketing data, run it through this type of process, and show here's how direct mail contributes to the business outcomes people care about. And you can do this across multiple different types of technology. We looked at Instagram stuff, we looked at B2B content. Being able to understand what drives the outcomes we care about is so important. And finally, preparing in advance for marketing. Marketers are so reactive because it's like juggling flaming chainsaws most days at the office. How do you get out of that cycle? The answer is through a type of machine learning called predictive analytics. Using those same keywords and a technique called autoregressive integrated moving averages, stats, you can take the amount of time someone has searched for something in the past and forecast it forward, and predict forward when somebody's going to do something. So for a customer of yours, for example, sold life insurance, you could show them in the next coming days or weeks or months when certain terms would be more searched for, indicating interest by the audience. You want to help somebody send out the most impactful mailer, for example, figure out when the audience is going to be searching for it and make sure that it's in their mailbox that week when they're thinking about it. That's predictive analytics. And it's not something that has to be this complex. You could literally turn it into a sheet that you would hand to your marketing department. Hey, this is what's going to happen in the next 4 weeks. Get ready. Let's plan ahead. We've been doing this for ourselves with our podcast, trying to make sure that we're timing the topics we talk about with what the audience is interested in. And we've seen faster than average growth, about 44% faster growth than before we were doing that. Predicting and understanding what people are interested in for most of our businesses is a pretty easy thing to do because most of our businesses are fairly cyclical in nature, especially B2B. B2B is incredibly cyclical. So those are 5 examples of using machine learning technology today in marketing. This is not fictional stuff, this is not navel gazing, these are real things done, and the technology is so powerful and so mature that you can run it on a laptop. Right? You don't need to have like $1 billion supercomputer center. Most of these techniques run on today's laptops. The important thing is to start now. Remember that machine learning is based on data. So if you're not collecting the data, you're not cleaning the data, you're not getting the data ready, you're at a disadvantage compared to a competitor who has. Conversely, if you get started and a competitor waits, not only do they have to catch up in general, but they have a data deficit because you've got runway. So how do you get started? Getting started is a 7-step process. The first step, and the hardest step by far, is that strong data foundation. Does your company know where its data is? Is it clean? Is it well prepared? Is it optimized for machine learning and artificial intelligence? This will take 80 to 90% of your time when you get started because it is such a difficult thing to do. We worked with one company last year that their sales department prohibited their marketing department from seeing sales data. We're like, how does that work? Not very well, by the way. It turns out sales was not selling nearly as much as they said they were. That was the reason for it. From there, you must become measurement-oriented, become a data-driven culture, be able to set meaningful key KPIs, key performance indicators. My favorite definition of a KPI is this is a number with which you will either get promoted or fired. If your numbers that you're working with are not going to get you promoted or fired, they're not KPIs. But building that data-driven culture is the second step in this journey. The third step is to be able to do qualitative research, which actually the direct mail world has done very, very well in over the years. And the reason for this is that most of our data is really good at telling us what happened. Very little of our data is good at telling us why something happened. You have to ask somebody, why did you make that decision? Why did you purchase this brand? Why do you not go to this store even though it's like slightly closer to your house? Building those qualitative research capabilities is important. The fourth step is process automation. We're busy. We are busy as marketers, so we have to figure out ways to automate as much as possible, free up our time, so that we can focus on things like data science and AI. A really simple example, I used to do social media scheduling for my company. And it took a while to put together 100 some odd posts a week and things like that, and load them into the software. I built software to do that for me, so now instead of taking 3 hours a week, it takes 3 minutes a week, and we can move on to more valuable work. So finding ways to automate every process that you can practically automate is really important. Once you've become data-driven, you find your data, you can explain your data, and you freed up your time. That's when you start getting into the actual machine learning part with data scientists, people who can understand your data and build capabilities for analyzing and experimenting with your data, implementing machine learning, and eventually becoming an AI-first organization. There are very few of these in the world. If you feel like, oh my God, I'm so far behind, there's like 10 companies that truly are AI first, and you can name most of them, things like Facebook and Google and Apple and so on and so forth. So this is the journey you need to take in order to become an AI-driven company. Any one of these steps will bring you returns, but taking as many of them as possible will change the way you do business. Now, there are a lot of vendors out there. Should you buy these capabilities or build them? It's an interesting question. I used to say it's a question of time and money. If you had time and no money, you built it, and if you had money and no time, you bought it. But it turns out there's a bigger thing to think about here, and it's a strategy. There's this concept that people love to talk about called digital transformation, which promises puppies and unicorns and rainbows. And what's funny about digital transformation is once you clear away all the hype, there is some legitimacy to it. When you look at how a company is governing its marketing technology properly, it looks kind of like this. Let me highlight this row here. The thing that is worth paying attention to is this box. Part of your marketing is creating value for your company, but in a digitally transformed company, the data, the analytics, the models, the machine learning you build could be valuable as its own product. For example, let's say you're a coffee company, and you built a machine learning model that effectively predicts how well a certain type of coffee tree grows. You can pick up that coffee tree growing model and apply it to soybeans, to rice, to stupid crops in video games. Right? You can do any of those things, and that model itself has value above and beyond the fact that your company is a coffee company. If you're a direct mail house and you build a model that is predictive based on all the data you have of which customers are going to respond to a piece of collateral, you could pick that up and sell that itself. So the question of buy or build is not so much time and money, it's will you be using artificial intelligence to change the core competency of your company? If the answer is yes, you have to build it, because that's your secret sauce. If the answer is no, buy it, save yourself some time. Some examples of just buying it off the shelf. Real simple one that I love a lot is a program called Otter. Otter takes audio files, like those calls, or even like this keynote we're doing right now. We're just recording the audio from it, and transcribes it. How much do you eat every day? How much do your customers physically talk to you? Being able to unlock that data and free it up is incredibly valuable. This costs like $80 a year. For those of you who are hybrids and work in digital, Google Analytics is adding AI to its software. You ever notice this box in the upper right-hand corner called Insights? In Google Analytics, you click on that box and it will tell you, hey, our AI was looking at your data and we found some things you might want to pay attention to. It's doing the work for you. You can even ask Google questions about your data. So in a lot of cases, your vendors will be adding this stuff into your technology already. If you want to build it, if you want to have a core competency that is improved by AI, a couple different things to look at. One would be IBM's Watson Studio, which is a very nice drag and drop environment to build AI without having to write code. And if you, or somebody at your company, wants to write code, the two languages that are the most popular are a language called R and a language called Python. So how do you prepare your company for this stuff? You're going to need three kinds of people. There's an expression, data is the new oil, from 2006. And I like this expression a lot because if you've ever worked with crude oils, nasty, disgusting stuff, doesn't do much except stain everything it touches. You need to extract it, refine it, and bring it to market in some kind of usable product. This is the same for your data. You need developers to extract your data from all the places it lives in your company, from your vendors, from your third parties, from your customers even, and bring it into one place. You need data scientists People who can help you take that data that the developers have extracted and turn it into those models, turn it into those pieces of software that you can use to draw useful conclusions. And then you need marketing technologists, people who can take those insights and models and apply them to the business. If you're a smaller company, you start with marketing technologists and work backwards. If you're a bigger company, you start with developers and work forwards. The reason for that is the marketing technologists, if they're good, can help you incrementally improve things like revenue to afford to hire the other folks. Now for the big question. What about you? Who's going to lose their jobs to AI? AI, by some estimates, is going to change or eliminate 70 to 75% of jobs in the next 10 years. The easiest way to tell whether your job is at risk is to open up your calendar and look at the first or the second Monday in July. If you know down to the minute what's going to happen that day at work, your job's in danger. Because it is so routine, so rote, so pre-programmed that what you do can be automated. On the other hand, if you open up your calendar for this coming Monday and you have no idea what's going to happen, but you know it's going to be a circus, your job's probably okay. To further insulate yourself, focus on multidisciplinary skills. Remember that machines are not good at general life experience. If you look at the top 10 most in-demand skills on LinkedIn, any one of these categories has things, tasks in it that can be automated. Audio production has things that can be automated. Analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence itself. But if you are good at multiple things, if you are good at audio, and you're good at sales leadership, and you're good at people management, you are very difficult to replace. You're extremely difficult to replace. If you're good at people management, and you're good at cloud computing, and you're good at UX, you are extremely difficult to replace because you're bringing in insights and things that work from multiple disciplines into your work. That's tough to program. Second thing is learn how to think like a machine. It's called algorithmic thinking. This doesn't mean you need to write code, but one of the things that distinguishes a great modern marketing practitioner from the old days is to look at a problem and say, how can I programmatically or systematically solve this problem so that it never happens again? As opposed to, how can I solve this problem today? And oh, by the way, next Wednesday I'm going to have exactly the same problem. Right? Being able to think like a machine is so important. Being able to oversee the machines is going to be a profession unto itself. In 2016, in Florida, which is where all the weird things happen, somebody at a police department tried to write an algorithm to predict recidivism, the likelihood that someone would commit another crime. The algorithm was 20% correct, which is far less than the flip of a coin. But it predicted African Americans would reoffend 5 times more than they actually did. Someone put their thumb on the scale and said, I want this machine to spit out this result. Last year, Amazon got into a tremendous amount of trouble because they wrote an algorithm to try to predict which candidates to hire. They trained the algorithm incorrectly and it stopped hiring women. This ability to oversee machines, to understand the outputs and to say, hey machine, that's not okay, is a vital part of our work in the next 5 years. We have to be outcome focused as marketers. Worry less about the process and more about the outcomes and the questions you need to ask to get to the outcomes you want. 3 years ago, I was trying to learn this technique called Keras. It's a framework, and I got to about the first column on here. And I went to IBM's Think conference, and they said, why are you doing that? There's a drag and drop environment that will do it all for you. You don't have to code anymore. I was like, well, shit. This year I went to Think, and they said, oh, we don't do that anymore now. The machine just does it for you. It's load your data, and it'll figure it out, and then you judge whether the outcome is what you want or not. So instead of worrying about the coding, we focus on the outcomes. Your job is to become the chief questions officer of your company, to ask, what outcome are we after? Is this fair? Is this reasonable? Will this improve the business? To give you a sense of where things are going, how many of you somewhat regularly use social media? Okay, pretty much everybody. Natural language generation is going to be the next thing that will drastically change marketing. This is something I was writing last night in my basement because that's what I do for fun. I took all of the social posts from NEDMA, from some of the folks here, from the folks at Oversight, and from a couple other publications, and I had this deep learning model start writing new social posts, and it came up with some really good ones. In about 15 minutes time, it wrote 20,000 tweets. Now, some of them are silly, some of them are not, but some of these are really, really good. Now, if some goofball in his basement can do this in an hour at $0 cost, this is what's going to change all of your marketing. In the future, there are going to be two kinds of jobs. How many people are local to this region in New England? Pretty much everybody? Okay. Been a Stop and Shop lately and see Marty the robot driving around? Marty didn't used to exist. There used to be a kid who pushed this cleaning supplies cart up and down the aisles, and they brought in Marty to detect spills. That kid's job changed. Now that kid is being managed by a machine. Marty goes up and down the aisles and says, hey, there's a spill in aisle 6. Come over and clean it. By the way, if you lay down in front of Marty, he thinks you're a spill. I tried. But this is the future. There's two kinds of jobs. Either you're going to manage the machines, or the machines are going to manage you. That's it. So the question for you is, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the person managed by the machines, or do you want to be managing machines? Thank you very much.
Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.